Welcome to our channel. Here's Carmen. Today I want to share an article named Exploring Interactions Between Learners and ChatGPT from a Learner Agency Perspective, a multiple case study on historical inquiry, written by Min Li and her colleagues. In recent years, generative artificial intelligence, the GenAI, has been one of the most discussed topics across the globe. In the international education field, we are typically interested in what kind of interactions between students and the GenAI chatbots like ChatGPT may occur and the impacts, in either good or bad ways, on students' learning. In the previous studies, it has been proposed that students tend to have routine interactions with ChatGPT, and 4 types of learner-ChatGPT interactions have been proposed. 1. ChatGPT as an authoritative resource to provide knowledge directly. 2. ChatGPT as a facilitator, guiding students to find their answers. 3. ChatGPT as a collaborator to help students learning like their peers. And 4. ChatGPT as an extended cognitive capacity to enhance students' memory and other parts of human cognition. They seem to make sense, right? However, Millie points out that not many first-hand experimental or observational data have been presented to support these theories. Also, the theories emphasize more on the functions of ChatGPT itself, what it does to help students learn. Therefore, Minnie et al. Hope to analyze the learner-ChatGPT interactions by learner agency perspective, focusing more on the learners themselves, including their extent of active participation and the control over their own learning in the learner-ChatGPT interactions, exploring how learners manage to utilize ChatGPT when they learn. Moreover, as we know, although facing the same learning contents, we are very likely to select different learning approaches with reference to our distinct contexts. Hence, Min Li also hoped to find out how learners' contexts affects their interactions with ChatGPT. To get some clues about their concerns, 2 core questions were thrown out by Min Li. 1. How do the case students use ChatGPT for the collaborative historical inquiry project? 2. What agentic orientations do the case students display in their interactions with ChatGPT for the collaborative historical inquiry project? Let's briefly run through how this study worked. The study was participated by 2 classes of secondary school students in Singapore. The students were required to investigate the historical events as a project with free access to ChatGPT. She classified the students into 3 groups by their different interactions with ChatGPT: use it during the research, use it after the research, and non-used. After finishing the project, 1 student from each group was interviewed individually. From the study, the 3 interviewed students shared differently about their experiences and feelings about ChatGPT. Student 1, who was desperate for achieving better grades in history subjects, when he had found his history teacher had been too busy to answer his questions, and the answers given out by his classmates were not totally correct. He decided to seek help from a quick responder, ChatGPT. Surprisingly, ChatGPT gave out what student 1 thought reliable and clear answers within seconds. Hey, I don't need to spend hours in digging in Google and other search engines just for an answer anymore, because ChatGPT itself can come up with a better one that I don't even need to check. Since then, he had gotten used to a procedure of finishing his history schoolwork, being assigned one, and then go to ChatGPT and copy the research questions. Then he copied and pasted the ChatGPT-generated answers back to his schoolwork, period. Therefore, we can see the way student 1 used ChatGPT during this history project was quite straightforward. He only used ChatGPT as the only reference for the project, asking how did the Hockley bus ride happen, and taking its output as the perfect answer. He was further reinforced to use ChatGPT with this approach at a time when his teacher didn't realize that the contents of his history research were actually ChatGPT generated and approved them. He eventually reached a conclusion that ChatGPT was trustable enough in historical research and no other tools or approaches were needed, leave alone speaking to his teacher or classmates. Student 2 was both interested in and good at history subjects. Nevertheless, she had used ChatGPT before the investigation, but found it both useful and concerning. On one hand, ChatGPT was very user-friendly that even a beginner like her could familiarize herself to it. On the other hand, having a record of receiving wrong answers from ChatGPT, she had less confidence than Student 1 on the accuracy of its output, same as what she had done. During this project, Student 2 used ChatGPT as well, but this time she explained it more about her motivation. Before using it, she wasn't really satisfied with textbook knowledge only, but she couldn't find help from either her teacher or her family members because of the time constraints or limited capability. Understandably, she then chose ChatGPT as an additional resource of feedback to enrich her project's content. At the same time, though, she was very careful about the precision of ChatGPT's responses. She picked the vague or contradict parts from ChatGPT and did extra research and cross-checking to ensure that everything was precise. Different from Student 1, experiencing ChatGPT, Student 2 cautiously stated that she liked traditional textbooks and teacher-student consultations more as she found them much more reliable, and she would prioritize these options if available. As for Student 3, he was a bit different from the previous two students. He had tried using ChatGPT as well, but he was not interested in it at all. In fact, he found completing research all by himself was far more fascinating than that with the aid from ChatGPT. Why was that so? Despite the accuracy concern, he gave up one more reason. He felt less engaged and enjoyable with ChatGPT in his historical research because ChatGPT was more like a fast food provider. It serves quick, but you can't compare its food to those from restaurants that take you a while to wait. Therefore, he never used ChatGPT throughout his projects, but examining the historical sources, especially the visual elements like photos that were completely absent in ChatGPT, with his own senses. In the interview, Student 3 maintained that he would not use ChatGPT in his future historical research, as he believed that the best way of conducting history investigations is to diligently discover and analyze historical sources by humans themselves. For him, figuring out history by himself was far more delightful than waiting for ready meals. Now, according to the results from the students, let us look at how Min Li came up with answers to the two questions. Regarding the question of how students interacted with ChatGPT for historical research, Min Li made various analyses. In comparison with the existing theories, Min Li pointed out that Student 1 obviously used ChatGPT as an authoritative resource and had developed a reliance on it to the point that ChatGPT's opinions represented his own, fitting into one of the constructed theories. Student 2 mainly used ChatGPT as a feedback tool to supplement information missed from other historical sources in order to perfect her project, which is not exactly the same as the existing theories. And for Student 3's case, the group of learners who refused to involve ChatGPT or other GenAI technologies into this historical inquiry represented by him was not only absent from the present theories, but also was rarely discussed. The interactions between the three students and ChatGPT highlights the insufficiency of the existing categorization of learner-ChatGPT interactions, prompting the field to reflect and construct a more comprehensive system. The three types of interactions also brought different learning outcomes to the students. On surface, Student 1's intense use of ChatGPT displays his ability to utilize tools to solve his problems. But deep down, the habit of completely relying on ChatGPT is slowly paralyzing his nerve, making up a bubble that he is learning, but in fact stripping the learning opportunities for the essential skills for historical research, such as interpreting historical sources and applying methodology from him. In contrast, Student 2 only used ChatGPT as an extra knowledge provider that requires constant credibility evaluation, while Student 3 chose not to employ ChatGPT at all after carefully reviewing its limitations and the importance of personal engagement in a historical investigation. From their performances, along with the insistence of Students 2 and 3 on occupying the dominating roles in their interactions with ChatGPT, they ensure that they are able to actively participate in history inspection and learn the core learning skills practically and personally. Also, the case of Student 1 underlines the importance of teacher in shaping learner-ChatGPT interaction. The teacher of Student 1 misidentified and approved his ChatGPT-generated output as his original effort, failing at stepping in and guiding him back to the appropriate use of ChatGPT. Thus, teachers should take up the prior responsibility of gaining a deep understanding of ChatGPT and its potential influence on students' learning journey to serve as a facilitator and educator of ChatGPT to students, leading them to use ChatGPT in a healthier way. Many new contextual elements affecting their interactions with ChatGPT, including their past experiences, present circumstances, and attitudes toward knowledge, are found. The greater unsatisfactory past experiences, mixed with students' individual learning willingness, determines their attitude, decisions, and extent of using ChatGPT in historical inquiries. Positive past success in ChatGPT reinforce student one's trust and reliance on it, and relative unsatisfactory encounters students 2 and 3 had with ChatGPT also push them to be more alert to it. While another general observation did mainly obtain from the students in the study, they all seem to form fixed routines of interacting with ChatGPT without teacher's guide. For instance, student 1 maintained his copy and paste approach with ChatGPT upon history inquiry. Student 2 kept the procedure of finding ChatGPT's assistance when no other support was available, while student 3 insisted on refusing to use ChatGPT. It is therefore concluded that a teacher is vital to facilitate and boost students' diverse interactions with ChatGPT when it comes to historical research. This routine pattern of interactions with ChatGPT then brings us to the second question. The pattern of ChatGPT interactions observed in this study had remained static throughout this history project. Even though this project took a long time to finish and multiple skills and knowledge were required, the students tended to stick to the interaction patterns they had gotten used to. They were generally unwilling to adjust their learning approaches. Among the interviewed students, only student 2 exhibited her adaptation to a small extent by turning to ChatGPT when insufficient historical resources were given. The remaining 2, like what I've introduced, insisted on their interact approaches with ChatGPT from the very beginning of their encounter with it to the future. The static agentic orientation, many authors suggest, is caused by the lack of experiences with ChatGPT and the failure of spotting out any alternative methods for ChatGPT utilization. In conclusion, Min Lee and her colleagues contributed empirical evidence that allowed us to investigate learner-ChatGPT interactions and their agency orientation in an actual setting, inspiring us that there is still a lot of study can be conducted to build a more comprehensive understanding about how students can enhance their learning efficiency by establishing healthy interactions with GenAI technology. It warns us educators that when students are benefit from the quick technology developments to enjoy GenAI, they are also exposed to the risk of developing an inappropriate reliance or utilization of GenAI, hindering their studying of critical skills and knowledge along their learning. Therefore, teachers like us shouldn't limit ourselves to only textbook knowledge, but try to bear an active responsibility to keep an eye on the students and direct them to learn to control their own learning with flexible use of different resources.